Welcome everyone, thanks for taking your time out of your lunch break to come and learn about owning the digital football fan at the 2026 World Cup. So, what do we know about the World Cup? It is 50% bigger in terms of teams. We have 48 teams instead of 32, 104 games up from 64, 39 days instead of the usual 30, so a longer period. More fan bases, more countries, some appearing for the first time, like Jordan in the region. We conducted this research in October, so it's very current. Just under 12,000 fans took part in the research from over 170 countries. So what I'm going to do today is really break this down in terms of the Saudi audience and how the Saudi audience compares to the global sample, how they differ, how they're similar, and how they contrast. So, unsurprisingly, given where we are, 86% of the Saudi audience, football is the #1 sport for them. Now, this outreaches the global sample by a considerable way, 67% globally. But what we're seeing here is that football is head and shoulders the #1 sport here in the kingdom. What we also saw was that the 2022 World Cup was really a catalyst for an increase in football interest in the kingdom in the subsequent years. So this is YouTube search data for fans in Saudi Arabia going to YouTube for football content. We see a huge spike during Qatar 2022, but then what we see is that that has obviously dropped when the tournament finishes, but the underlying trend is massively up compared to what it was before the 2022 World Cup. So we're seeing a huge amount of increased interest in a country that is already football mad. We're seeing increased interest in football content. The last World Cup was huge. 5 billion fans engaged across all media. This is FIFA data. And the 2022 World Cup final was the most watched World Cup final in FIFA history with 1.5 billion viewership across the final. For Saudi fans, we asked them about what excites them most about the World Cup. Just the sheer love of international tournaments was the clear #1. That special buzz around the World Cup. What's unique about the World Cup is it is the one period in time when no other football is taking place anywhere in the world. So it's the one period of time where every football fan is watching the same thing at the same time. So that creates an opportunity. It's the most important football competition to win, and it's an opportunity to see their favourite players. All of the research that we've been doing leading up to this has shown an evolution of fandom amongst young fans that is increasingly player first. Fans are following between 7 or 8 teams based on where their favourite players are. You look at the recruitment strategy of the Saudi Pro League. This is tapping into that player first fandom, or as I heard Oleg on my panel call it, fluid fandom, compared to fixed loyalty. So the tribal nature of football fandom is evolving and is decreasing. In terms of the expanded format, Saudi Arabian fans are much more enthusiastic about the expanded format than fans that we polled elsewhere in the world. 64% of them said they will enjoy the tournament more in expanded format. And what we see is that the people that are saying that they'll enjoy it less skew massively into the over 35 bucket. There will be more of your football purists that still wish the World Cup was 24 or 32 teams, but amongst younger fans and amongst fans in Saudi Arabia is an increasingly popular evolving of the tournament. Despite the prospect of the challenging time zones, 70% of fans in Saudi Arabia said that they will be watching as many games as possible. Interestingly, it was lower in terms of games featuring only My Nation, and we'll talk about that later. And then 20%, other games featuring their favourite players when the big nations play each other. We looked at kickoff times, how that will impact viewership. We asked fans, when will they watch games during this time period? Unsurprisingly, if you spent any time in the kingdom, you see that late night is their favourite spot into the evening. Mornings, less so. Obviously, the afternoon window is not really relevant to us here. There won't be games kicking off in the afternoon here in the Kingdom. We asked fans, are they still looking to travel to the World Cup? 20% of the Saudi sample, at the time we polled them in October, were still looking to travel to the World Cup in person and be there. In terms of barriers to entry, cost of travel, and cost of tickets. Obviously, there's been a lot of publicity around FIFA's dynamic ticket pricing, and we've seen the early sales of tickets skyrocket on the secondary market, and this is coming through to fans. This is impacting fans' willingness to travel in person to tournaments. This is something that I was talking about on my panel earlier. We polled the fans saying, if you couldn't watch the live games, you know, and you could still interact in other ways, would your enjoyment of the tournament be diminished? And 35% of Saudi fans said that the enjoyment of the tournament would not be diminished if they didn't watch a single game live. There is now such a plethora of content on social channels, clips, highlights, watch-alongs, fans engaging with each other, creating content, that appointment to view minute 0 to minute 90 is no longer important and no longer the crux for younger fans and how they engage with major tournaments like the World Cup. Younger fans are turning to, unsurprisingly, social channels first. I picked out 4 key areas here around where there is such a big gap between younger and older fans. One of those is social media as their favorite way to follow football, TikTok, Instagram. Video games, the difference is huge. You know, the research that we did and presented a year ago showed that the Kingdom is unique globally in that gaming is the #1 catalyst to in real life football fandom. Everywhere else in the world, it was participation, it was playing football as a kid, it was being taken as a young boy or girl by your father or your mother to watch a game. That was the catalyst of football fandom. In Saudi Arabia, it was playing video games. And we see this laid bare there. The difference between the older fan and the younger fan is huge. In terms of merchandise, buying kits, showing your support in a very visible way, again, very big difference between younger and older fans. Sorry. Sorry, just need a water. Online watch-alongs is a new, where fans are watching other fans talk about the game on YouTube. We did one for the draw ourselves in London. We flew our Saudi creator over. We had creators from Holland, Germany, Italy, with our London fans. This is an increasing way to engage with young fans where they're watching other fans. They're part of the conversation. They're asking each other questions. They're contributing. 94% of young Saudi fans under 34 will be second screening on other devices. And by second screening, we're not just talking about watching scores from other games or the data. This is about engaging with content, sharing content, being part of the conversation. And as a result, in terms of that social media ecosystem, 54% of Saudi fans will feel more positive towards a brand that sponsors their favorite creator than a brand that is an official sponsor of the World Cup. So we're seeing a huge shift that is relevant for brands looking to activate around the World Cup. And over 3/4 expect new technology, AI, new platforms to change the way that they experience the World Cup. So how to engage fans during the World Cup? We talked about player first interest. Again, we see this here. Gen Z fans massively more interested in in players first rather than a particular team. +14, significantly outstretching the other markets around the world, the more established football markets. Unsurprisingly, if you spent any time here, who are the top players? Ronaldo, Messi, Yamal, Mbappe. Then we get to more sort of local regional players, Salah, Al-Dassari, and then Pedri. These are the players that fans are most excited about watching next summer. And this is more true anywhere else in Saudi than anywhere else in the world. We asked fans, how many countries will you be following, supporting at the World Cup? In Saudi Arabia, it was 7. The global average was 5. And we asked which nations they were. So unsurprisingly, there was some support for the regional countries, Morocco, Egypt, Algeria. But then we see that player power coming in. Portugal, Spain, Brazil, Argentina, France. Obviously, that Spain affiliation will be put to the test in the opening game next summer. But we're seeing the Ronaldo effect here. This is probably one of the most important numbers. 9 out of 10 Saudi fans will continue to watch the World Cup, even if Saudi Arabia go out. You know, Saudi Arabia's involvement in the tournament is not the be-all and end-all. It's hugely important. Of course it is. It's the World Cup. But they will continue to watch and continue to be engaged throughout the tournament. They're already interested. Obviously, we did this poll before the World Cup draw on Friday. And after the way the World Cup draw played out, I'm not sure whether those numbers might have gone down a bit. But 50% of them nearly were already interested in World Cup content. They want you brands, media brands like us, to be feeding that demand for content already. The draw was the first milestone. There were other milestones along the way. The kit launches, the squad announcements, the warm-up games. All of these are milestones leading into the first match kicking off in the middle of June. We asked, beyond the obvious goals, highlights, clips, results, what are the sort of content areas that you want to see around the World Cup? And surprisingly, under 34s fans, the number one was historic and memorable moments. So it's about tapping into that nostalgia of previous tournaments. Obviously, Saudi Arabia are returning to the US. US 94 was the first tournament that Saudi Arabia qualified for. First time they got into the knockout stages. Scored one of the best goals ever seen at a World Cup final against World Cup finals against Belgium. So they want to tap into that. And that leads into the second part, which is national pride. That national pride of club loyalty has been put to the side. Everyone unites behind the national team. It's an opportunity to connect. Spending time with friends and family is a globally relevant part of what a World Cup means to fans. And then, the atmosphere and the rituals that are around it. We see here where under 34s start to peak more around player stories and personalities and cultural moments. Everyone can remember the Where's Messi guy after Argentina beat Saudi Arabia. Probably went more viral than the goal itself for a while. We saw it again at the Club World Cup when Al Hilal beat Man City and the fan did the chokehold and his glasses. Often these are the moments that fans are talking about for longer than the game, And so as a brand looking to activate with fans, those are the moments to tap into. We talked about second screening, so 94% of fans under 34 will second screen during the World Cup. What are they doing? Here's where we see the differences. So the under 34s are significantly more likely to be chatting to their friends, engaging with their friends whilst the game is on. It's not a distraction to them. It's an essential part of enjoying a game of football is live interaction with your fans, with your friends digitally. Looking at content, during the game. We talked about it earlier. The average sort of content consumption by people now is more hours than are in the day. So they're consuming multiple sources of content at the same time. And during a football game we see that as well. Young fans want to have their say, not just amongst their fan group, but against their friends group on WhatsApp, but they want to post publicly. They're posting comments, they're posting opinions, they're sharing memes. So they want to be part of the conversation and not just a passive consumer. In terms of like emotional storytelling content, again, we see big spikes compared to the older fan in terms of content that they want, to make them feel something that captures the emotion and the atmosphere. They don't just want to watch, they want to feel. And that's important and very much part of what we are planning for the World Cup. Content needs can vary, but what we're seeing here is that they want content that is more entertaining compared to more informative, compared to the older group, where they want more what I call traditional content, news, analysis, scores. So this is an opportunity for brands, where do they find their most trustworthy content amongst the under 34s? The established media, broadcast, news sites is declining. We're seeing the rise of fan-led channels and friends and family as sources of content. So how to drive attention? We asked them about recognition of the official sponsors, and you can see the results here. There's obviously increased awareness around the local brands like Aramco. But this was the interesting one where in Saudi Arabia, a very high number of people misattributed Pepsi as an official World Cup sponsor. Now, obviously, that's probably a mixture of the Pepsi's unique position in the kingdom, where they are more popular than Coca-Cola in terms of sales, but also the fact that Pepsi have been very sort of prominent in other areas of football, Champions League, Saudi Pro League, Women's League, and we've seen that come through. Younger Saudis, what do they want from the content? The key areas here are they want it to be authentic, they want it to be creative, and they want it to be community-driven. Again, it comes back to that emotional connection with each other, whether that's digitally or in real life. They want it to be authentic. They want brands or publishers to understand fans authentically and deliver them content that's going to add to their enjoyment. What don't they like? Too generic, overly commercial. Don't try and sell me something. Amongst the under 35s, authenticity is critical. Not being a supporter of fans, and being out of touch with fan culture. So again, if you are a brand looking at targeting fans, these are important things to consider. And we talked about this earlier around the difference now, and this is very different between where fans' feelings will change towards a brand. 54% would feel more positive about a brand if it was sponsoring their favorite football influencer or creator. 56% their player, compared to the actual tournament itself. So just to summarize, obviously the World Cup is going to be huge. There's going to be a lot of noise. We're seeing a shift in landscape. We're seeing different time zone, different platforms. But earning that attention is key. And so think beyond the live broadcast. It's not essential anymore in terms of reaching new fans. So think about that second screen, where you can show up, how you can be authentic and add to the conversation. And don't leave it till the middle of June. The interest is there right now. And in terms of the nuance for the Saudi market, they love the World Cup, but their fandom is fluid. They're following 7 countries. Think about how you can tap into that. Less intent to watch the live games in the morning, but much higher intent to watch the late night kickoffs. And then the high levels of second screening. And then when it comes to trusted World Cup content and opinions, the Saudi fans are loving fan-led channels, the channels that put fans at the heart of the conversation. And that's it. Very quick, 15 minutes. Thank you. I'll be around for the rest of the day. If anyone wants to chat any further, just grab me. Thank you very much.